So hopefully you guys are motivated about asset protection. But now, Paul, do you just want to quickly explain what are the things that constitute asset protection? Like, I know there's personal asset protection, but then there's also protecting the assets of your company and separating that out. So you just want to give an overview, kind of, without going deep. I know otherwise this video could be 2 hours, and I would, but not everybody would. So just a brief overview of the possibilities here.
Sure. So what I would say is probably on the more extreme side of asset protection on the personal side are things like the Nevada Asset Protection Trust. These are situations where you're actually giving your assets to a third party, a trustee who's going to control your assets. There's going to be certain parameters in which you can and cannot get your money. The trustees are very good. This is not Bernie Madoff. These are publicly traded companies that are audited by Big Four accounting firms. The money stays in the accounts that you had, Fidelity, Vanguard. This isn't one of these things where it's like a mystery and you're just getting a piece of paper. But the control you're relinquishing, and that is the part that people have a hard time with. But it's valuable and
you're giving away everything you own.
Right. You're giving it away. You have, you set up, okay, well, there's monthly disbursements. You can have monthly disbursements that are, $100,000 a month, right? And refuse them. I mean, there's reasons not to do quite so much, but there's discretionary items as well. But the reason why we do this, and the best place to do this these days, we tend to like Nevada Asset Protection Trusts. Delaware and Nevada both did this, but I think Nevada has done a better job of just sort of creating the type of asset protection trust that used to only exist in countries like Nevis, which is a little island near the Cayman Islands. And the way these trusts work basically is, in the event that a creditor is coming after you for your assets, let's say you have a major product liability lawsuit. So, perfect candidate for this. So, if my client's selling merch, t-shirts, I'm probably not as concerned, at least from a product liability perspective. But if my client's selling hoverboards, you better believe if they have money to protect that I like to encourage them to look into this as a way of protecting themselves, because here's how it works. You basically get these takeover provisions that kick in so that if you have a judgment against you and now they're trying to get a court to basically force you to pay out and they're getting a court order, right? Well, if you don't pay out on a court order, you're held in contempt of court. It's really bad. We don't want that to happen. However, if you don't have the ability to pay because you don't control the trust, somebody else does, now you can't be held in contempt anymore because the trustee with the right takeover provisions will have complete control over your trust and shut you off and prevent any of your assets from going to the creditors. And that's a good thing. And these are deterrents. And again, we're all trying to get to a settlement here. You're trying to settle the matter. You're trying to force a settlement. So having these weapons in place, it's almost, I'm going to say a poison pill because the idea is to keep your assets, but it's sort of a way to deter further creditor action. Again, whenever there's litigation, we want people to take your policy limits. We want people to accept what the insurance policies offer. There was a hoverboard case in Kentucky. They wanted $30 million because the hoverboard burned down somebody's house. They tried to sue Amazon because the seller was in China. But, if you're watching this and you're not in China, you're here in the United States, you're a target. And so you need these types of protections. So that's sort of the extreme side of asset protection on the personal front. But asset protection starts with your LLC. And I think that's the key, is that it starts with your very first LLC, forming that LLC on legal.
Before we go into corporate there, let's finish up personal, just a summary here. So basically it's saying, hey, I don't own anything. It's over there in that pile, and I can't control that pile. So basically, if somebody were to, I guess, go try to rob someone, like, you're not going to rob a homeless person with no money, I guess is a good thing. Or like, you're not going to go after something that doesn't have a lot. So that's a deterrent. Or if it's like in a giant guarded fortress. So it's kind of like that. It's like, because you're saying deterrent a lot, and some people might not understand that.
Yes.
But it's basically a reason why they're only going to sue if it's a really good reason, like gets rid of the fake lawsuits that are like for a lot of money, essentially.
Right, exactly. I mean, and even if it's a legitimate lawsuit, even if you were negligent, I mean, this has nothing to do with whether you're at fault or not. This is just whether they can get the money. You've been held under strict liability that you're at fault because the hoverboard, caught on fire. We're already past that point. It's not a question of whether you did something right or wrong. It's a question of, can they get your money? Can you pay them? If you don't have a trust set up like that, then you're open to it. Now, I'm not saying it's for everybody. And just to sort of segue a little bit before we get into corporate, but keep in mind that having the right LLC is a personal asset protection strategy, right? I mean, having a good LLC with asset protection provisions, with a operating agreement that's not over the top, that doesn't have, you get one of these boiler operating agreements off the internet and it says a million billion things that none of which you're going to do. or even really are applicable to your business, or it says you're going to do any lawful business possible. But these look generic and are very easy to basically prove that they can pierce the corporate veil, that this isn't really a legitimate entity. So yeah, your LLC is your first level of personal asset protection, but then it's what happens when they go through that. That's where something like this can come into play. Also important to note, when you do trusted estates, when you set up your will and trust, and I really encourage you to do that, it's something we help a lot of our clients with. I can't believe how many of our clients don't have a will. It's amazing. But there's a thing called a living trust and a revocable trust. And basically what it is, it's sort of like a nothing trust until you die. And as a result, you can basically take money as you want. You have complete control. You're not turning it over to a third party. Those don't have any protection because you kind of have the word trust. Don't think that that is, if maybe you've done one, maybe you have a legal plan through work, your prior job, and you did this. That's not what we're talking about here. Those are not asset protection vehicles. So I just want people to realize that when they're watching this, that if you've gone through that exercise with an estate planning lawyer or a LegalZoom, that's not what I'm talking about here. Revocable living trust where you can just, take your money willy-nilly. That's not what we're talking about. That's not going to work.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, to sum it up, all right, you're here. And then when you make companies, they're over here. And then when you make a trust, it's over here. So basically what you want to have two giant castles. You want to have like a whole bunch of defenders there. And it's like, nobody's going to try to raid that castle and get to it. But if they do take over that castle, they get to you right away. But if you don't have anything, then it's like, well, there's nothing to take here. So now they have to go over to that and try to take over the trust. But the trust is like, if done right, they can't get into it. So then it's like
with a trust, it's a multi-billion-dollar company that, like the whole thing kind of works together. Like we create these fortresses. Again, the goal is, hopefully you have a good insurance policy, a couple $1 million. We want people to take your insurance to policy limits. We want people to say like, that's what you get. You get what you get. You don't get upset, right? Or something that my kid used to say.
My mom would always say, you get what you get. You don't throw a fit.
Yeah, exactly. So, the way you make it easy for a lawyer is to have none of those things, right? Have a LegalZoom Wyoming LLC that you formed, the LegalZoom special, the Wyoming special, form that on your own using an operating agreement you found off the internet, or don't even have an operating agreement, which oftentimes is the case because it's a very different, an operating agreement and the articles of organization, two very different things. And, really you might be functional, banks will respect your LLC, but I mean, if push comes to shove, right, don't expect that to save you at the end of the day because lawyers are very good at going right through that. And that's the point. So, it may not be a big deal when you're first starting out your business and maybe you're out of college, you don't have a lot of money to your name, but the moment you start to have assets, a home, family, that's when you have to start thinking about this stuff. And how do you want to be protected?
You want a dragon to protect.
You want a dragon to protect you. Yes, you do.
The ways to get a a
Yes,
can't go buy a dragon, but this is the next best thing.
It's solid legal. In fact, I think I'm going to change the name to our law dragon. I don't know if that's sensational, but legal dragon.
Yes. So this is how you get a dragon to protect your personal assets. Now we'll go into how do you protect your company too, because that was the first part. They're going to go after your company and then
Absolutely.
So we'll talk about that in the next video.